everybody, welcome back. So, a couple things before we dive in today. One, if you see me swatting at something, that's because there's a mosquito in my apartment and I have more than enough mosquito bites as it is, so I'll try to edit them out if it comes to that, but if I have to dip into the audio in order to do that, I'm going to apologize in case any of those make it in. And two, it came to my attention today when I was looking over the videos that I've uploaded and the videos that I've scheduled to upload that I haven't really touched at all on some of my favorite things to talk about. And I decided to change that today. I am a relatively upbeat person. For the most part, I am a cynic, but I've also always had kind of an interest in things that are a little bit darker. Macabre, I guess you could say. I am fascinated by studying serial killers on a purely educational level. Only educational. Psychology background. They're interesting in the world of psychology, so yeah. Things like serial killers, unexplainable phenomenon, and even the paranormal. When it comes to the paranormal, I understand that everybody has kind of a different opinion. There's some people that are firm, tried and true believers that all of the things that can't be explained are some kind of paranormal happening, if you will. There's others that don't believe in it at all. There's those that think the idea of ghosts or spirits sticking around is just silly and absurd, and that everything can be explained away by science. We just maybe don't have the technology to explain it away quite yet. Personally, I fall kind of in the middle of that spectrum. I do believe in a lot of paranormal activities, if you will, but I am also a bit of a skeptic. I'm not one to jump immediately to, oh my gosh, I heard a noise in my apartment at 2 a.m, it must have been a ghost. I try to be very logical about things and say, oh, well, I live in an apartment building that was put up in like the 40s or 50s, so I probably just heard somebody walking around on the 3rd floor, you know. And if I have an experience and I'm unable to explain it away, I'm still not one to chalk it up and say, this was paranormal. That was a ghost. What else could it be? I do believe it's possible that there are things that we may not be educated on as a population that could cause those types of things to happen, or maybe we just don't have the technology to explain all of them yet. However, some of the experiences that I have had make it pretty hard for me to not have some level of belief that these things do exist out there. And today, we're going to talk about one of those events. So, when I was in high school, my older sister lived in Colorado Springs for a time with her husband and relatively new child. Come summertime, I decided that I really wanted to visit them. I've always been pretty close with my sister and I hadn't seen her in a really long time. And I thought it would be fun, instead of driving across the state to my dad's house for the summer, to go stay with my sister in Colorado Springs. I'd never really been in Colorado very often, maybe for very short trips or on our way through going somewhere else. And so I thought that it would be a really fun thing to do, a nice experience. Plus, I just missed my big sister. So everybody agrees, my sister agrees, my mom is okay with it. So that summer I pack up all my stuff and I go down to Colorado Springs to just stay with her for about 2.5, 3 months. And while we're down there, some kind of weird stuff had been happening. Not necessarily like, oh, I heard my name being called when I was alone in a room. Nothing like that. But just some kind of weird things. I would put something down somewhere in the room that I was staying, and then later that day when I would go to grab it again, it would be gone and moved somewhere else. And I knew that nobody else had really been in there doing any tidying or anything like that. So just kind of little peculiar things here and there. Could be chalked up to me having a really shitty memory, because I do have a really shitty memory even back then. But could also be chalked up to maybe something else. Again, I don't know. I'm not one to cry wolf. Then there was one night in particular. my sister, myself, and her husband are sitting up watching TV. Kid had been put to bed, and we decided to put on a movie. And about maybe a third of the way through, the young child had been put to bed a few hours ago at this point, and we started hearing some noises coming from his room, which was kind of peculiar. When they put him to bed, he did have a TV with an old VHS player in it, and every night they would play VHS tapes for him because it helped him get to sleep. Normally, when the tape had finished, it would go to a blue screen. Those of you who are old enough to remember VHS players and VHS tapes will know kind of what I'm talking about. Typically, once the tape is done, it'll go to a blue screen at the end. And it'll stay that way unless you had a fancy TV at the time that was meant to shut off automatically after no activity for X amount of hours. My sister decides to go check on him, see what's going on, and while she's in there checking on him, she calls for myself and her husband to come in and see what's going on. And we were like, okay, that's kind of strange, but sure, whatever. So we go into his room to see what's going on. And here's kind of the basic setup of the whole thing. So on one wall, we have his crib. He was still pretty young, and he was in his crib. On the other wall, we have the TV that was in like an entertainment center type setup thing, and it was on static rather than the blue screen, which was very peculiar. Down the wall from the TV was a fan, one of those oscillating fans. And down here on the wall, so on the same wall as the crib, there was a nightlight. Not a super bright one, just a nightlight to help. Now, we walk in, and she said that she thought it was really bizarre that the TV had turned to static, and she wanted to know if she was just not remembering things right, and static was normally what happened after the tape was done. And we said, no, normally it goes to a blue screen. That's kind of peculiar. And now I'm in there, and I'm a little uncomfortable at the time. I'm not very great with kids, and I didn't want to run the risk of waking him up. So I was just kind of leaning up against the wall right next to the nightlight, trying to be really quiet, not really talking very much. While we were in there, he had woken up all of the way and started standing up and kind of babbling. He could talk in full sentences here and there, but for the most part, he was still in that kind of in-between stage for speaking. What really got us was at one point, he stopped and he looked at my sister, and then he pointed right next to the fan. Nobody was standing over there out of the three of us that were in the room with him. He pointed next to the fan and he looked at her and he says, "Who's that?" We kind of freaked out a little bit at that. We didn't go overboard or anything, and we tried getting him to explain what he meant. We're like, there's nobody there. What are you talking about? But by then he had lost interest and he was just going back to being a small child. Now, I thought it was kind of weird, but I'm still just kind of leaning against the wall, not being very loud, trying really hard not to be very loud, things like that. And her husband stopped and he kind of looked at me funny. And I was like, what's going on? And his eyes got super wide. He looked at me and he's like, "Stay right there. I'll be right back." Now, I'm thinking, shit, there's a spider on the wall above me or something like that. I don't know. The house was a little bit older. It wouldn't have surprised me if there was just a spider crawling down the wall towards my face or something like that. So I was like, oh, great. So I'm standing there, I'm leaning against the wall, and I'm trying not to move now because I don't know what he's doing. And he comes back with a camera. That's a little odd, I think. And he tries to take a picture of me. And the entire time, mind you, that he had run to go grab this camera because it was downstairs or upstairs or something, so it took him a second. My sister was looking at me and she just had this really confused and kind of concerned look on her face. And she wasn't talking. I didn't know what was going on. She wouldn't talk to me. I was just kind of trying to stand there, be a good child and not move too much and see what was going on. They get done, he gets back, he tries taking a picture of me and he goes, "That was really bizarre." We go back out to the area where we had been watching the movie. They put on the VHS for the small child again and he went back to sleep. And we went out into the living room area to talk. And I was like, okay, what's going on? You're kind of freaking me out a little bit. Both of them kind of looked at each other for a second before her husband had started explaining to me that while I was standing there, my shadow was massive on the wall behind me. At first I was like, so? Shadows can be bigger than the thing that casts them? That's a thing that happens? What's the big deal? He turned to me and he said, no, but you don't understand. The only sources of light in the room were coming from next to you by your feet, where the nightlight's plugged in, where the TV is at. Neither of them were very bright lights, so to have cast an obvious shadow, isn't something that would have happened. And on top of all of that, I was leaning up almost completely against the wall. Like, my lower back and probably my shoulders were both up against the wall. So it's not like I was standing far enough out that it would have cast my shadow back very far to make it enlarged. And they said the shadow that was behind you was at least 7 feet tall. I'm 5'6". Even then, I was 5'6". I had stopped growing at that point. And so I was like, sure. And my sister looked at me and she goes, he's dead serious. It was there the entire time. When he came back into the room with the camera, it was gone. We don't know what's going on here. And so I really wish I had a photo to show you that he, maybe he would have snapped a photo and it was still there, because it was very peculiar. And I'm really bummed that I don't have a photo to show you guys, but it was a thing that happened. It was really bizarre, and there were a lot of other weird things that happened in that house, like I said before, just little things here and there, noises that really weren't explainable by the house settling, things being moved or misplaced, lots of things like that. And the second that they had the opportunity to move out of that house, they did. By the time they had moved out of the house, the young child had started getting scratches on his back when he was sleeping, some of them deep enough to draw a little bit of blood, and things were not good. That's the story about the possible ghost in my sister's house from Colorado Springs. Now, again, I do have some other experiences that I might share on my channel in the future. This is one that sticks out to me because it was kind of a big event that happened and there were multiple witnesses, and so I like telling this one when I start to explain some of the experiences I've had to people. But yeah, I really do find a lot of darker things to be really interesting, and so I also want to share those things with you guys as well. I might be working on a new series to add to my channel that kind of helps fulfill my interest in those types of topics, so if you're also interested in things like that, stay tuned. Hopefully something will be going up soon to introduce what I'm talking about. Don't want to give away too much yet in case it ends up being an utter failure. So yeah, as usual, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have had a similar type of experience or an experience of your own that you want to share, leave it in the comments below. I love hearing about people's paranormal encounters. I think they're really fascinating, and the skeptic side of me does like to try and explain them away too, so be warned, I might do that. And yeah, if you want to see anything in particular in the future, let me know. Have any questions for me, send them to me in the comments, or you can send them to me on Twitter at Killatara1. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.